I thought he was having an affair. I thought he was having an affair, and what he was doing was having an affair with drugs, right?
If you don't want to see it, you don't want to admit that you have that's a problem in your life.
I can't stay here. This isn't for me.
So he was online, and you had the camera off, and go and do a line, and then go back on screen. I said, "Look what you're doing to yourself. Why do you not want to save yourself?" And I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it's horrible to watch someone destroy themselves that you love so much. I couldn't understand why he would want to jeopardise our relationship he has with his daughter, but the relationship he had with himself. I couldn't understand how he could hate himself that much.
If there had been no addiction in your world and your life, do you think you'd be the same person as you are right here, right now? This is Real Women's Stories. You're quite calming.
Am I? Good.
Yeah. You're calming and you made me feel comfortable.
I'm glad you said that, because that is something I do try to do, because I have felt for most of my life I haven't been able to be me. So I like to be able to allow people to be them, because there's nothing wrong with that. And it wasn't really particularly anybody else stopping me from me being me. It was me. I didn't feel I was good enough as I was, although I felt I just spent my entire teenage and early 20s just trying to fit in and not feeling like I fitted in, and constantly changing myself to try and fit in. And then when I met my husband that I'm with now, he actually allowed me to be me. He tries to take credit for it in a nice way, for like my style and stuff like that. But actually, he does admit all he did was allow me to bring it out. It was already there. It's just he allowed me to be that, and that's so true actually, because I always felt like I couldn't be that person with anyone else.
I get that, because Adam's allowed me to be me as well.
Yeah.
And I think I've transitioned hugely over the years, and even more so now that I can be me. It's like I have a strong personality, I have a voice. Like I'm not going to sit small anymore. And I think as women, we do, don't we? We kind of shy away from it. So yeah,
it was weird. Yeah, because I never wanted to be the centre of attention. I didn't like attention. I didn't like being the looked at when I entered a room or anything like that. And I'm not saying that I was, but I worked on a beauty counter for quite a long time, and I always looked at the other women. I just thought, they always look so glamorous and well done, and I never felt like that. And then they always had designer handbags and purses and stuff like that. And it was the times when Burberry was really in. And I remember I saved up my money to be able to buy a Burberry handbag and matching wallet in the check that was all the rage back then. And that makes me laugh and cringe a bit now, because I hate designer brands.
Yeah.
I'm not designer. I never have been, but I felt I needed it to fit in. And actually I didn't. It wasn't them putting that pressure on me. It was me putting it on myself. But it makes me laugh. And also a bit sad, because I got in so much debt when I was at university and in my 20s, trying to fit in and buy things to fit in with other people, and it didn't work, and it was never going to work because it wasn't me.
So you've given me a good impression of like an overview of you, Hannah. So you're very individual. You have a passion for allowing people to be who they are, because you never felt like that yourself. When we met, we did touch upon it, because I myself have been in a relationship with a person who is an addict. And we talked about kind of Matt and Emma Willis, didn't we? That was what sparked the conversation. And I was like, oh God, I'd really, I've been listening to his podcast, which I found fascinating and interesting. And I know that the two of them have done a TV program, but it was like, there's not really anything out there for people on the other side, how you deal with it as a partner, as a wife, as a girlfriend. Somebody is an addict, and how to deal with those situations. So could you just explain to me kind of the story, like what happened, how you found out? Because I remember when I found out, that was so traumatic.
So there wasn't a bit, so there different to you then, there wasn't really like a moment that I found out and it was a big betrayal and discovering my husband was someone I didn't think he was. It wasn't that, because when we met, I'll be perfectly open about it. When we met, I used drugs recreationally as well, It was part of the industry that I was in when I was in a sales background, and it's just something that happens in that area. So it wasn't something I was against, but it very quickly changed to him having a problem with it and using it without telling me, using it in situations that it wasn't necessary, it wasn't normal, when we weren't, and using it alone. And then that starts to kind of really show the signs of it being a problem. If you don't, not using it to have fun with people, what are you using it for?
Yeah.
What's the point? And that's when the line became clear that this is different. This is no longer us enjoying it together, having a laugh together when we're out. This is now something else, and actually made me then not want to do it. So then I stopped. So then the gap kind of became bigger between us, because not only we're not doing it together, we weren't doing it. So, I took myself out of that situation completely because it didn't align with me anymore, and I could see what it was doing to him. But even now, I mean, skipping forward a little bit, but even now, I'm still learning stuff about what he did in his addiction phase, or like how often he used and how much he spent, that I didn't realise. And so it can still shock me now, because I'm like, I didn't think it was that, like I knew it was bad, but still, even today, sometimes I can talk myself into thinking, oh, but it wasn't that bad. Like, oh, you're making, you don't really have a right to talk about it as an expert, or have a podcast or anything, because it wasn't that big a deal. Some people have it a lot worse. He wasn't on the street. He's not, reverting back to the stereotypical addict ideals. And I convinced myself that it wasn't that bad. And then there's other times when I think about certain situations and things that happened, and I think, God, I can't believe I put up with that. I can't believe we survived that, or all these things. So I swing from realising how bad it actually had got to thinking, actually, I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. It wasn't that bad.
If this episode touches you, then hit the follow and subscribe button. This is Real Women's Stories. We have got a backlog of episodes for you to listen to, where you can feel part of a safe, supported community. There are lots of conversations about middle of the lane drinkers, users, and as you said, not drugs aren't, and even alcohol abuse, it's not, or I should say use, it's not necessarily about an addict who is homeless, who is on the street, whose life is coming to an end, because people can actually live their lives sustaining using drugs, having a drink, but why they're doing it is the problem.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's maybe either not spoken about enough, or not in the right way, on the right channels. I'm not sure what the issue is there, but it's very much, people are using drugs and alcohol as they're not the problem. They're the solution to the problem, or what they think is the solution. So my husband soon realised, once he was in recovery, that he wasn't using drugs and alcohol as a way of having fun. Particularly, it was actually his solution to getting out of his own head, not worrying about being himself, all these kind of insecurities that he had that he didn't even recognise or want to admit to himself. So it was very much, the addiction is actually the symptom, and the drugs and alcohol are the solution they choose to use, which doesn't help, because it only makes these things worse, and then you end up in a vicious cycle.
We're talking about this because there could be somebody listening to this, and they could be in a situation where they realise that their partner is having a few problems. Could be in a similar situation to you. They could both be using. For them, it's recreational. For the other person, it's not. At what point and how do you deal with it? How did you deal with that situation initially? Because it's that initial thing that is like, I'm going to open a can of worms here. What's going to happen?
I mean, initially, I'll be totally honest, I didn't deal with it very well at all. It was really hard, because you don't want to see it. You don't want to admit that you have that's a problem in your life, and you don't want to admit to people, because at the end of the day, drugs are illegal, most of them. All the ones that you can generally get addicted to aren't socially acceptable. I mean, they are in your circles, of course, but just generally, it's frowned upon to do drugs. Whereas alcohol's absolutely fine, because we sell it in shops and pubs, so that's okay. But and in my opinion, alcohol is far more dangerous and destructive than drugs. And I'm not anti-drugs and I'm not anti-alcohol. What I do think there is a lack of is support and education around drugs, around what they can do to you, and about the support you can get if you do have a problem, for both the addict and the family. And that's something that I'm trying to do, just through sharing my own experience, is to help those people who perhaps can't access that support or don't know, or it's not there in their area, because it isn't everywhere.
If you are in a situation just like me and Hannah, and you're in a relationship with a partner who is using substances and you just don't know what to do, then get in touch with me. I have been through the similar experiences and I have learned so much from Hannah, and together we can work out a way out of the situation for you to deal with those challenges. What's interesting for me is because one of my ex-partners was, and I think it was the realization that it was happening. I was a bit almost relieved when it came out, because their behavior was just so I mean, I thought I was losing my mind, because their behavior was just so erratic, and there were things that they would go missing and I didn't know what was going. I thought he was having an affair. I thought he was having an affair, and what he was doing was having an affair with drugs, right? And it was just like, once I had said, is this a situation? Because I think someone said to me, have you checked your bank account? And I was like, what? Have you checked? So I checked my bank account and there was a load of money that got missing. And this person said to me, I think they're on drugs. Yeah. I think it's drugs. So for me, it was a bit of a relief to know, right, this is what's going on. This is what I need to address. But then once I found out, and we went down the route where I put him into rehab, the meetings, the whole dynamics, the emotions, just it was so traumatic for me to deal with on the other side, because he was just almost like going through the motions. It's like, well, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. We're going to try and sort our relationship out, X, Y, and Z. We went to the Priory, which is in Southgate, and he was told strict instructions, wasn't allowed to contact me, and was trying to contact me, and I've left this behind, I've left that behind. Now, the night before he went in, he went on a complete bender, and I didn't see him, and I was just last hurrah, and I was just literally like, I can't believe you've actually gone and done this. And I just was like, why can't you just do as you're told? You're not meant to be contacting me. Just go, just do this, just focus on this program, just do it. And then I remember going to the meetings and I just felt like, I shouldn't be here. It's just like, what am I doing?
Why did you feel like you shouldn't have been there? Was it a meeting for you or a meeting for him?
No, it was a meeting for me. I went to the meetings to support him. And I just felt like I felt like this wasn't happening. It can't be true. I can't be sitting here.
So you felt like you shouldn't be there, in terms of, this shouldn't be my life.
Yeah, I didn't. I was side blinded. I was side blinded because I knew he was using recreationally, but I didn't realize how bad this was. And I later found out it was even worse once we'd actually split up. And I'm sharing this with you because I think it's important that we share our stories.
Absolutely, because you've got a different side, because you didn't know, whereas I did.
I didn't really understand how it was just crazy. It was something that I just thought, oh no, it's not going to happen to me. But then I think it got to a point where I went to a meeting and I was hearing people's stories, and you introduce yourself. Hi, my name's Lisa and my partner's an addict. And just saying those words, it was like, oh God. And I was working, and I was trying to live, like I was masking everything, like no one really knew what was going on. So it was like I was living these two different lives. And I could hear parents talking about their kids and then the fact they had to kick them out, and you know, just the stories were just heartbreaking. And these have been going on for years and years and years and years. Now, this was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
And be it selfish or not, I just stood up and I went, I'm really sorry. I appreciate everything everyone's saying, but I can't stay here. This isn't for me. And I walked out. And when he came home, it was like he'd been on a holiday and it all been great and it was all lovely. It was like, and I just looked at him and I just went, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I just can't do this. Now I still feel guilty saying that.
No, I don't. You shouldn't feel guilty, because that's your choice, and it's okay for you to make that choice. You felt you couldn't deal with it. It wasn't what you wanted your life to be like, and that's okay. For me, again, I had a choice, but for me, there was no choice until I'd absolutely seen it to the end point. If I was going to leave my husband, I wanted it to be because I had tried absolutely everything, and there was no way anyone could say that I hadn't put my all in. Not that I really cared what other people thought as such, but I just wanted to make sure I had given it my all. He'd done everything he could, or I felt he'd done everything he could, and I'd done everything I could, and then I'd just gone, do you know what, this isn't for me. But I loved him. I love him. I still love him. And for me, I couldn't just walk away. That wasn't an option for me at the beginning. And luckily it doesn't need to be an option for me now, as it stands. Touch wood.
Would you stay with your partner if they were an addict? And why? I'm interested. Leave your comments below and join the conversation. Look, I don't think my relationship was strong enough to have survived that, and that's what I couldn't see, a life ahead of me of trauma, of listening to these people's stories. And I think, I do feel some, obviously, guilt in some
I don't
ways.
think anyone ever needs to justify why they did or didn't stay. I think, because some people ask me, why did you stay? And I do try to explain it like I just did, but at the end of the day, I don't need to justify why I stayed. You don't need to justify why you left. That's our own choices and our journeys. It's what you do after that or with that decision. And you learn obviously different things from whichever path you chose. For me, I've learned very much that recovery is for both parties, well, actually the entire family. There was a lot of stuff that I had to overcome and come to terms with, and recognising myself as well. And that was a really hard thing, actually. So when someone realises they've got an addiction, and there's kind of several stages to it. So first of all, they've got to acknowledge they've got an addiction. Then they've got to acknowledge that they need help. And then they've got to want to accept the help. So some people just think it's, they've got a problem and they need to go and get the help. No, there's actually 2 or 3 stages in between those 2 things, because there's one thing knowing you've got a problem and realising you need help, and then actually accepting it and going and getting the help. Those are two different steps. And once you do that, on my side, from the partner side, I'm looking at them going, okay, so we finally got to the point where you acknowledge you've got a problem, because to start with, he didn't have a problem in his head. Then he was going to get help, but as we discovered afterwards, when he first went into the rooms to get help, he was only going for me, not for himself. He still didn't really think he had that big of a problem, or if he did acknowledge he had a bit of a problem, he didn't really want to do anything about it yet. He wasn't ready. He was still out there having fun, or not even fun, but just getting on with it. So he was going for me because he didn't want me to leave, or he wanted to shut me up effectively. And that's never going to work, because it didn't work. It only worked for a few months, and then he relapsed. And then he was still going to meetings online, but using online while in the meeting. This was during COVID, so he was online, and he'd had the camera off and go and do a line and then go back on screen. And it's just, and that was just so that I would think he's online doing a meeting. Oh, he's good. He's always good. He's in recovery.
And
he's doing the work.
And you didn't know he was still doing it?
No, at that point I didn't know that he was still doing it. I suspected at times, and towards the point that when I found out that he still was, I suspected. But then you start to get, because they've managed, as addicts, they're manipulative. So I'm talking about addicts as in general here, not just my husband. And because I still struggle with that sometimes, that I'm being dismissive and lumping him in with everybody, and not giving him the respect that he deserves. But addicts as a rule, and they will admit this themselves in meetings, they are manipulative, and they will lie to get what they want and to get the end result while they're in active addiction. What they do afterwards, they still have those traits, because as we've established, it's the problem within themselves. That's just the solution. But he was very good at that he would convince me that he wasn't doing it, or that I was imagining things, or that I was thinking about situations that had happened before when I had been right, and then projecting that onto the future situations when I wasn't right.
Right.
But, so then my head becomes confused, and I'm like, I thought he was, but actually no, I haven't found any evidence. Oh no, maybe I'm just thinking about the last time. So no, he's good. He's not doing that. Meanwhile, he is, but he's now convinced me that my mind's playing tricks on me. So then I don't know whether to trust myself, and you have that. So it's a bit like gaslighting. I don't like to call it that, and that word is thrown around a bit too much. But it is like that, because you start to think, okay, so I must be wrong. He would never explode back. Like, we would never have. It would always be me shouting and ranting and screaming at him, and he'd just be standing there, a bit out of it, slurring, looking. I just always remember how he looked. I actually videoed him once, and he still won't watch the video because he doesn't want to see himself like that. But I've kept it because I think one day he should see it, just to see what I saw, and to also see how far he's come, because you can see the visible difference. And he was just pale and clammy and shifty, and wouldn't make eye contact, and just looked completely different. If you saw him now and you watched that video, you wouldn't think they were the same people. And I didn't like who I was, and that's what made me so angry with him. You're making me be someone. Now, when I look back now, I can take accountability for that. Well, no, I'm responsible for my own actions and how I react and respond to things. But then, in the moment, I was like, you're making me someone I don't want to be. You're making me aggressive, violent, abusive. I'm saying things to you that I would never say to anybody. I'm calling you names, and I don't do things like that. And then I was getting physical. So I would hit him, and I would, out of pure frustration and hatred for, look what you're doing to me. Look what you're doing to yourself. Look what you're doing to your family. But more so in the video that I took, I said, look what you're doing to yourself. Why do you not want to save yourself? And I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because it's horrible to watch someone destroy themselves that you love so much.
Okay.
And he'd just be standing there in front of me, and I couldn't understand why he would want to jeopardise our relationship he has with his daughter, but the relationship he had with himself. I couldn't understand. He could hate himself that much, that he wouldn't want to be better. And it was heartbreaking for all of us. So the kind of the rock bottom for him was he went missing for 2 days, and he was in a house, and the paranoia was set in, and he came home after, he was doing the same thing. I was ringing him, he wasn't answering. He came home the few days late, when the 2 days when he came home, and he just looked broken, and he just said, I can't do this anymore. I was like, okay. So, and I was quite harsh, to be fair, because this was at the point where I just kind of got to the point where I can't do this anymore. It got to the point where it was either he was going to die because he would kill himself with the drugs. He was going to kill himself out of choice because he couldn't do it anymore, or I was going to kill myself because I couldn't do it anymore. Because this was in lockdown, we were isolated anyway. He was all right because he was classed as essential working because he was a commercial electrician. So he was out every day working. I was at home all the time with kids, having severe anxiety because of the pandemic. Really reached rock bottom myself. I was drinking quite a lot in the pandemic, and I'd actually thought several times about, I have a studio at the bottom of my garden for my photography, and so many times I contemplated I could just go down there, lock the door, and I can just escape this. And I didn't do it because of my children, but that was the point it was getting to. And yeah, when he said he couldn't do it anymore, I was like, okay, so what are you going to do then? Because I've heard this before. You did this, and then you relapsed, and then you just carried on. So what's going to be different? And And I could sort of tell it was different. Like I could sort of tell that actually he wanted it this time, but I'd got to that point where I was now closed off. So I'm in protection mode. So you need to prove now what you're going to do, because I've heard this all before. It's all a load of bullshit to me as far as I'm concerned. So then he started going to meetings again, but this time he actually started doing the work. Then he got a sponsor, and started doing the 12 steps. Yeah, he's nearly 5 years clean and sober now.
Amazing. And I will congratulate. We always say when people are sober and they've been in recovery and they've managed to get to a certain point.
And he's like I say he's like a different person. He's not. He's like the person I always knew he was and should have been. You can see in his eyes, the light has come back in his eyes.
These are happy tears.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
These are happy tears. If there had been no addiction in your world and your life, do you think you'd be the same person as you are right here, right now?
No, I wouldn't. I'm exactly who I am now because of everything that has happened to me and that I've done. So that right back to when my dad left, that's probably shaped me the most as a person, if I'm honest. But then being bullied as a child, being in a marriage that I wasn't happy in the first time, with my son's dad, all those things, and then the addiction and the recovery part has all made me who I am today. So if anyone ever asks, do I regret anything? No, I don't. Do I wish some parts hadn't had to happen? Yes, it happened, and I learnt things from it that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise, about myself and about other people. And that's life, isn't it? Learning about yourself and other people.
Yeah, I asked you that question because, I think like a lot of people, we get dealt a hand of cards and we can often sit and play victim, or we can sit there and recognize that there are situations in our lives that happen. And I always remember when I was very young, even with my mum, I might have talked about on the podcast, and we talk about situations that have happened, and I was just like, I am who I am today because of those situations. And I think that we all need to sit back and recognize and acknowledge, and you should, all these things that have happened, all these challenges, this journey. But where you are right now is exactly who you're meant to be.
And I have a good life now. I love my life. Like, I don't love every aspect of it at every time, because shit still happens or I get annoyed about stuff. But overall, I have a lovely home. I have 2 amazing children. I have an amazing relationship with my husband. I have a great job. I get to do what I love every day as a job. Not everyone gets to do that. I get to make my own timetable, my own schedule. I earn what I want to earn. Again, I'm very lucky. I got born. I'm a white female in a Western country. I mean, that's things I didn't choose. I was lucky, so I have to be grateful for that. And I think some people can think, oh, gratitude and all that is just so woo woo, and only people that have amazing things are grateful, because of course they would be. They've never dealt with shit. Well, actually, if you speak to most people who are really grateful and have a lot of good in life, it's because they went through really shit things. And I totally acknowledge there are people who have been through far worse than me, but there's people who haven't been through half as much as I have. And neither of those sides of the spectrum are right or wrong. Everyone is on their own journey, but you can be and should be grateful for everything on whatever journey you're on, because you never know what's going to come next.
I commend you and thank you for sharing your story with me.